What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 12:51 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So, last night, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, was rushed to the Kremlin for an unknown reason. And there have been videos circulating on social media showing French troops arriving in Odessa, Ukraine. And I cannot confirm if this video is legitimate or not, but the video does show what appear to be French armored vehicles arriving in Odessa, a small convoy of French armored vehicles. We also have rumors coming out that apparently Israel was initially going to respond to Iran with extreme force and then backed down and chose a limited strike instead for face-saving purposes. And this was reported by numerous sources, including the New York Times. And according to the New York Times, Israeli leaders discussed striking several military targets in Iran, some of which were near the capital, Tehran, but apparently Israel abandoned plans to launch a broader attack on Iran after pressure from America and allies. Now, there has been this rumor floating around on social media that Israel loaded a nuclear weapon on one of their F-35s and they were going to fly over Iran and drop this nuclear weapon and detonate an EMP over Iran. I cannot confirm if that's true or not. The source of that information is apparently some intelligence sources within the US government that leaked that out. And the story is that basically the Israeli F-35 was shot down. And then, in order to avoid nuclear war, both sides agreed that Israel would just launch a very limited face saving strike. And both sides agreed to basically end it and not escalate further. That's the rumor. I don't know if that's true, okay? But we do know that Israel was planning to strike many more targets than what they actually did. And many of these targets were near Tehran. And now it makes sense why on Wednesday night we had that crazy night full of emergency action messages being broadcasted, which are nuclear attack options, including arming codes for various missiles in the U.S. nuclear arsenal. They were being broadcasted all night long into Thursday morning for hours and hours. We were live covering it all night long, 8 hours straight. I've never seen anything like that, never heard anything like that. And now we know why the U.S. nuclear forces were basically brought up to what they call cocked pistol. Okay, they were brought up to the highest level of readiness, ready to launch, basically, sort of like a cop drawing a gun on a suspect. Okay, safety's off, round is in the chamber. All you got to do is squeeze the trigger. And this update was sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a discount on their 1 month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. This is a 1 month freeze-dried food supply. It has a 25-year shelf life. Normal price is $237. They've dropped it down to $177. So that's a savings of $60. And it's all packed within 2 rugged, water-resistant buckets. Free shipping is included. $177 for 1 month of food. Where are you going to find a deal like that? They also have a general store, and they're always running discounts in their general store on various prepping and survival items. They have everything from MREs, potassium iodide, to survival seeds. And to get to their general store, you got to click on the My Patriot Supply logo. at the top of the page when you get to preparewithnyprepper.com. And you'll see when you get there, they have everything you can imagine. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $60 off the My Patriot Supply 1 month emergency food supply. That's $180 for 1 month of food, free shipping included. The link is in the description below this video. And also check out their general store. They have everything you can imagine prepping and survival related, and they're always running various discounts there. That's the level we were at last Wednesday night. And I think the reason why is because Israel had a much larger strike in mind, and then they backed down at the last minute and chose a more limited strike. Okay. Whether it was true that they had a F-35 loaded with an EMP bomb and they were going to detonate it over Iran, I have no idea. But the New York Times is reporting that they were going to strike targets near Tehran, which potentially means that they might have tried to go after some of the military leadership, maybe some of the Iranian generals, maybe even the president or the Ayatollah Khamenei himself. Who knows? But on Wednesday night, if you remember when you were watching the stream, I showed you guys the Iranian president's plane take off that night when all those messages were going out and the arming codes for our nuclear forces were going out. The Iranian president's plane took off from Tehran and it went east, and then it shut its transponder off about 100 miles east of Tehran. Maybe that's why. Maybe Israel was going to strike Tehran that night. Maybe they were going to hit multiple targets there, multiple other targets around Iran, and then they backed down. And that's why Wednesday night our nuclear forces were brought up to DEFCON 2 for a short period of time. So this is very serious, guys, and it just shows you a lot of things happen behind the scenes, and we only know just a small sliver of the truth, okay? So just keep that in mind. The government, the military, and the media are never going to tell you the truth, okay? 100% what's going on. They're always going to just give you small breadcrumbs that most of the time are actually not even fully true, okay? But we do have unconfirmed reports that French troops have arrived in Odessa, and there is video footage showing that. And Putin was rushed to the Kremlin last night, so I don't know if it's related to that or something else. And a member of the Iranian Parliament's National Security Committee, Javed Karimi Gadusi, stated today that Iran is now able to build a nuclear weapon within just a 1 week notice. Okay. So this is very, very serious, guys. And this type of rhetoric from Iran could provoke Israel to launch a preemptive strike to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, which I think is still coming. Okay, remember in that limited strike, Israel did take out the surface to air missile system in Isfahan in central Iran that is responsible for guarding the Isfahan nuclear complex. So they took out the air defense near one of the nuclear complexes in Iran. Obviously, they did that to scare Iran, but also it was a test. They wanted to see if they could do it, if they could penetrate Iranian air defenses and destroy them. And the test was successful. So if Israel wants to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, they can definitely do it. They would need America's help to completely destroy them because a lot of Iran's nuclear facilities and their missile bunkers are deep under mountains that are thousands of feet high, under 1,000+ feet of rock. So they would need American low yield nuclear warheads or earth penetrating conventional warheads. Okay, Israel just doesn't have that. They do have nuclear weapons, but Israel's nuclear weapons are more strategic rather than tactical. But it is possible that they have built tactical gravity bombs that they can drop from their F-35s. It is very possible, okay? They do have 2 air bases in Israel that they use for their nuclear strike fighter jets, their F-15s and their F-35s, and it is possible they do have gravity nuclear bombs that they could fly over these nuclear weapons facilities and these bunkers and drop them right onto the entrances to these tunnels that go underground and just cavitate the whole bunker and collapse it under the rock. It's very, very possible that Israel has been working on that for years. And I want to just show you guys what we have going on this afternoon. So we currently have a B-1 strategic bomber flying over Iowa right now. And what's interesting is that it's actually being accompanied by a KC-135 aerial refueler, and both of them took off from Oklahoma City basically at the same time, and the KC-135 is trailing it. So it just got aerially refueled by a KC-135, which is pretty unusual. You don't usually need to refuel a bomber over the continuous United States because bombers have huge fuel tanks. They can go over 7,000 miles on one fuel tank, okay? These B-1s have a range of 7,500 miles, which means they could literally fly across the Pacific and back without stopping, okay? So for them to have to refuel over the US, they're either doing an exercise or they plan to stay airborne for some time, maybe for some kind of patrol. Maybe there's a threat to the homeland and they want to keep it airborne for a while. We also have a presidential doomsday plane that's been sitting on the tarmac at Offutt Air Base all morning. Okay, it's been sitting there all morning ready to take off. So definitely our nuclear forces are on high alert still after Wednesday night. I don't think we're at DEFCON 2 still like Wednesday night, but I do believe we're still on a very high level of alert. We also have a lot of activity in the Eastern Mediterranean. Here we have a U.S. P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter that was patrolling the Israeli coast and the coast of Lebanon. It was also looping up near Latakia in Syria. So very interesting. And there was also a UK Beach Shadow plane that was active near Israel as well. That's an ISR plane for the UK. So a lot of reconnaissance here in the Eastern Mediterranean, and I don't think the situation between Israel and Iran is over. It's quiet for now. I am concerned that during this week, which is Passover in Israel, Iran and its proxies could launch some kind of surprise attack. We have to wait and see. And there was actually a car ramming incident in Jerusalem this morning. Apparently, a vehicle struck several civilians in two different locations, causing injuries. And I did see the footage. It was absolutely horrific. There were just some civilians standing around, and a car just smashed into them going like 40 miles an hour. Okay. Thank God they weren't killed, but I'm sure they have really bad injuries. But this is literally going on just hours after the start of Passover. So if that's not a sign that we're in the end times, guys, I don't know what is. And last week, when Iran launched the missiles at Israel, they literally launched missiles at Jerusalem, guys. Iran launched missiles at Jerusalem, okay? And today, apparently, the red heifer is going to be sacrificed, which would fulfill Bible prophecy. The next thing that would happen is the third temple being built, which would then bring about the tribulation period and the return of Jesus Christ. So we have to keep an eye out and see what happens in the Middle East. We are living in biblical end times right now. I'm not saying that the end is next year or even 5 years from now or tomorrow. I don't know. Okay, but the signs are here. Okay, we're seeing attacks on the start of Passover. We're seeing missiles being launched at Jerusalem. Okay, this is very, very serious, guys. And just to remind you, Iran launched hundreds of missiles at Israel. Okay, that's unprecedented. That is unprecedented, guys. Let that sink in. Hundreds of missiles launched at Israel. Think about that. Okay, we're not talking about Hezbollah. We're not talking about Hamas. We're talking about a country that has a sophisticated missile program attacking Israel with hundreds of high-speed, hypersonic ballistic missiles aimed even at Jerusalem, okay? That is a huge sign that we are in biblical end times. And Poland is ready to host nuclear weapons if NATO decides to deploy the weapons in the face of Russia reinforcing its armaments in Belarus and Kaliningrad. Polish President Andrzej Duda said in an interview published on Monday, if our allies decide to deploy nuclear arms on our territory as part of nuclear sharing to reinforce NATO's eastern flank, we are ready to do so, Duda said in an interview published by the Fact Daily. Moscow, in response, warned it would take steps to ensure its security if Warsaw had the weapons. Duda spoke to the Polish media after a visit to New York, where he held meetings at the UN and discussed the war in Ukraine with former U.S. President Donald Trump. In March, he visited Washington, D.C., where he met with U.S. President Joe Biden. Discussions about nuclear cooperation between Poland and the U.S. have been ongoing for some time, the Polish president said. I have already talked about this several times. I must admit that when asked about it, I declared our readiness, Duda said. Russia is increasingly militarizing Kaliningrad. Recently, it has been relocating its nuclear weapons to Belarus, he added. Now, Duda was good friends with Trump when Trump was president. It was actually under Trump that a record amount of U.S. military forces and U.S. military bases were moved to Poland. Okay, they built like 4 or 5 bases in Poland when Trump was president, and they also deployed permanent brigades to Poland. And also, Poland purchased a lot of natural gas from the U.S. to reduce their reliance on Russian gas. So Duda and Trump have a very good relationship. And the Polish president was invited by Trump to have dinner at his personal residence in New York a couple of days ago. And I'm sure Duda talked to Trump about nuclear weapons. I'm sure of it. Okay. So I think if Trump becomes president, I think he's going to give Poland the nuclear weapons and they're going to be part of NATO's nuclear sharing. So that's something to keep an eye on. Russia will take into account potential deployment of U.S. nuclear weapons in Poland in its military planning, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said, commenting on Polish President Andrzej Duda's statement on his country being ready to deploy nuclear arms under NATO's nuclear sharing program. It looks like Warsaw is deliberately seeking to attract more attention from those dealing with military planning in the Russian general staff. It would be logical to assume that once U.S. nuclear weapons appear in Poland, relevant facilities will be immediately put on the list of legitimate targets in case of a direct armed confrontation with NATO, she said. She slammed Duda's statement as provocative. Poland's authorities make no secret of their striving to lean closer to the U.S. nuclear weapons deployed in Europe and are actively using these ambitions in their hostile Russian policy, Zakharova said. This has us looking more closely at Poland in our military planning, taking into account threats to Russia that are generated with the participation of this country. So basically, she's saying if Poland gets NATO nukes, then NATO nukes in Poland will be a target if there's a conflict, and Poland would potentially get nuked, and the facilities where those nukes are stored and any associated facilities would be nuked as well. But that's just a way of her scaring Poland away from the idea. I don't think it's going to stop Poland. I think Poland's going to get the weapons. I think it's going to happen under Trump, and Trump is going to do it in order to show Putin that he's not afraid, and also to check the Western European countries who think that they have all the power in NATO when they don't, because NATO has half of their membership in Eastern Europe. And the Western European countries sort of forget that. And they think that they have all the power. They have the nuclear weapons. They have all the advanced weapons. And I think Trump is going to give Poland the nukes to kind of balance that out a little bit. And Poland and Lithuania will be conducting joint maneuvers in the Suwalki Gap. The maneuvers are formally called Brave Griffin 24 and are a component of the Steadfast Defender exercise going on right now. About 1,500 soldiers from Poland, Lithuania, the US, and Portugal, and about 200 units of military equipment will take part in the exercise. The aim of the North Atlantic Alliance's maneuvers, which will last until the end of June in Lithuania, is to check the defense plans approved during last year's NATO summit in Vilnius and to send a clear signal about the strong determination and commitment of NATO members to mutual defense. The Lithuanian Ministry of Defense said that the maneuvers are going to be observed by the presidents of Poland and Lithuania this week. The exercises themselves take place in the towns near the border with Poland and Belarus, and also Lithuania and Belarus, including Druskininkai, Alytus, and Orane. Lithuanian President Gitana Nausėda spoke about plans to conduct joint military exercises with Poland in January this year. The name of the plan is referred to as Orsha, which refers to the Battle of Orsha in Belarus in 1514, when joint Polish-Lithuanian troops led by Orthodox Prince Konstanty Ostrogski defeated Russian forces. So pretty interesting, okay? Big exercise with Poland, Lithuania, the US, and Portugal in the Suwalki Gap. And I don't think it's an exercise, guys. I think it's a forward deployment, and it's going to be observed by the Polish president and the Lithuanian president. And this is going to take place right next to the border of Belarus, right next to where Belarus moved all those troops last month when they were doing combat readiness exercises, and they moved an entire mechanized brigade to the border of Lithuania. So this is very, very serious, guys. Tensions are very, very high. And what you're looking at here is a video footage of Putin being rushed to the Kremlin. I have no idea why he was rushed to the Kremlin, but he was rushed last night to the Kremlin. And a Ukrainian missile hit the port of Sevastopol in Crimea over the weekend. As a result of the missile's impact, the Kommuna rescue ship, part of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, was damaged. Apparently, this is the oldest active warship in the world. So maybe this is why Putin was rushed to the Kremlin. Who knows? But I do think that Putin is going to launch some big strikes on Ukraine in the coming days, because last week Ukraine hit a lot of important targets. They hit this warship. They hit some S-400 sites in northern Crimea. They hit an early warning radar on the outskirts of Moscow for Russia's nuclear forces. They destroyed a factory that produces strategic bombers for Russia, the Tu-160s, and they also shot down a Tu-22, I believe, which is one of Russia's bombers that they use to strike Ukraine. So Ukraine has been launching a lot of strikes in Russian territory. Okay, they also destroyed another oil refinery and some kind of substation in Western Russia. Okay, so we have to be on the lookout for something happening this week with Putin and Ukraine. And Greece and Spain are under strong pressure from NATO and the European Union to provide Ukraine with additional air defenses. And the president of Ukraine said that Putin will invade the Baltic states if Ukraine loses the war. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today that the support of the US, Britain, and France for Ukraine raises the risk of a direct confrontation between the world's nuclear powers. And this comes right after the U.S. House of Representatives approved the $60 billion aid package for Ukraine, which most likely will get passed in the U.S. Senate. And we already know that the Pentagon plans to immediately send equipment to Ukraine as soon as this bill gets passed and signed. And Denmark will deliver all of its F-16s to Ukraine. This was announced by the Danish ambassador to Ukraine, Ole Egberg in an interview with the program We Are Ukraine. There will definitely be airplanes for Ukraine. This is our entire fleet of F-16s, which is now being decommissioned because we are getting a new generation of planes, the F-35. There is no need to worry. F-16s will be delivered as promised. So that's huge, guys. Denmark giving all of their F-16s to Ukraine. And there was a massive fire at an electromechanical plant in Russia. No word on the cause of it, but apparently 3 people died. I'm pretty sure it was probably related to Ukraine. And we have these cryptic tweets that have been posted by the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei. He posted yesterday, "Trust in God and be aware that his promise to defend the faithful is definite and inviolable." And then he hashtagged Al-Aqsa flood and true promise. True promise was the strike on Israel. Al-Aqsa flood was the Hamas attack on Israel. So very, very interesting. And I want to just show you guys this footage here of this fire in Russia at this electromechanical plant. Absolutely insane. Look at that, guys. That is just insane. So it looks like Ukrainian sleeper cells are active in Russia, constantly setting fires to various factories that are responsible for producing parts for the Russian war machine and also materials for the Russian war machine. And the Kharkiv TV tower in northeastern Ukraine was destroyed this morning by several Russian rockets. And since then, apparently TV and cell connections have been disrupted around Kharkiv. So this is a sign that Russia is going to attack Kharkiv in their upcoming spring and summer offensive. And North Korea fired several short-range ballistic missiles on Monday towards the sea off its east coast, South Korea's military said, drawing a swift condemnation from Seoul, which called it a grave threat to stability on the Korean peninsula. A Japanese government alert and its Coast Guard also said North Korea had fired what appeared to be a ballistic missile. The projectile appeared to have landed outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. And the U.S. and the Philippines have kicked off large-scale exercises amid growing Asia-Pacific tensions. Politican, an annual joint drill between the U.S. and the Philippines, has rung the alarm from China. What's different about it this year is that this year's exercise will be the largest yet, with 17,000 troops from the U.S., the Philippines, Australia, and France taking part. The participants will simulate sinking an enemy warship and capturing islands in areas facing Taiwan and the South China Sea. Notably, they will conduct their first ever exercise beyond Philippine territorial waters into contested waters. Additionally, the Philippine Army will train in the use of medium-range missiles deployed for the first time to Asia by the U.S. just last week. China has slammed the exercise for bearing a destructive impact on regional security. It criticized the Philippines for bringing in external forces to flex muscles and stoke tensions, warning the latter would turn itself into someone else's chess piece. So the U.S. Army moved their Typhoon missile system to the Philippines, guys. It has a several thousand-mile range, and the Philippines is going to be trained on how to use it. And they're doing these big exercises now. So obviously tensions are very, very high between the Philippines and China and just in Asia in general. There's a lot of tensions there. And I showed you guys 2 weeks ago where China has moved all their missiles on their coastline. And all these missiles put Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan within range. So if anything happens, they could immediately launch missiles at Japan, at Taiwan, and at the Philippines, okay? Here we have some video footage coming out of Yale University showing students blocking a Jewish student from passing by on the morning of Passover. Okay, so this is anti-Semitism going on at an Ivy League school in the United States. Okay, this is absolutely disgusting and despicable. Don't send your kids to Ivy League schools because they are indoctrination centers created by the New World Order. And what you're looking at here is a NATO AWACS plane that was looping over eastern Latvia near the border of Belarus. This is very concerning. And it was obviously keeping an eye on Russian and Belarusian forces here on the border. And here we have the flight path of a U.S. reconnaissance plane that was flying along the border of North and South Korea. And finally, I just want to mention that Alps is doing a big sale on their Exodus 600 and Exodus 600 Plus portable solar power stations. You can get one of these for $139 on Amazon. It's a mini solar generator, and that's a really good price. I have several of the Alps solar generators. They're very high quality, and I've never had any issues with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link to where you can buy these solar generators with the full discount. And you can also use my promo code NYPrepper for 5% off. Okay, they also have a larger solar generator that comes with a panel. They have different combinations here. You can get just the generator itself, the mini generator, for $139. Then they have a panel that comes with it for a little bit more. They have different size panels. They have different size generators, but this is one of their new generators. It's the Exodus 600. So check it out. I'm going to leave a link in the comments down below along with the promo code. And also I'll leave it in the description below this video as well. So I will be back later on tonight with another update. I'm not sure if I'll go live or not. But until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.